Hi, and welcome again to One Big Thing, a KAC legislative update. This week's big thing is property taxes, but I'm going to talk about property taxes in a little bit different of a way than I normally do. As we all know as county officials, you know that property taxes is a big issue, especially as property taxes continue to rise for property taxpayers in your jurisdiction. It's important to remember that this was also a big issue in the previous election. What we have to think about when we talk about property taxes, however, is that property taxes don't just exist in a vacuum. Property taxes go to pay for the services that county government offers. So when we talk about property taxes, we are also talking about services. This is important because in order to lower property taxes, we either have to cut services or we have to cut the cost of those services. So, for example, when we were looking at a bill like Senate Bill 57, which would require counties to also include the costs of relocating cable and video service provider lines that are in the county right-of-way, this would increase the cost of projects. This is important because this bill, although it's not necessarily about property taxes, impacts property taxes. And it impacts property taxes because by increasing those costs, even if some of those costs are paid for by the state or by the federal government, those costs that are not covered by the state or federal government are still going to impact property taxes. So SB 57, even though it looks like it's a bill that deals with roads and utilities and right-of-way, is really also a property tax bill. Similarly, we look at something like Senate Bill 17, which would allow for larger weights or for trucks that carry larger weights to drive along county roads and bridges. Again, even though Senate Bill 17 is not a tax bill, it impacts property taxes because the weight of those vehicles could damage or cause more maintenance to be necessary for county roads and bridges. And those funds derived to repair county roads and bridges come from property taxes. So increased maintenance costs would again be a property tax issue. It's important that when we're talking to legislators then, that we make the point that all of these pieces of legislation that could impact the cost of services also impacts property taxes. Another good example is Senate Bill 119. This bill would transfer some of the fees that are currently being collected by the state for motor vehicles to be transferred to the county. This would help offset the costs of the motor vehicle registration that are currently borne by the counties. This is a bill we've been advocating for the last several sessions, and we hope to get it passed this year. This is important because this bill actually lowers the cost of services because it allows those services to be paid for through fees. As a result, property taxes would not need to supplement the cost of the motor vehicle registration operations. And as a result, this could result in lowering property taxes. So when we think about legislation, we have to think not just about whether or not it's a tax bill that may specifically impact property taxes, but we also have to think about whether it is a bill that would either increase or reduce the cost of services, because those are also property tax bills, even though they aren't labeled as such. That's all for now. I hope everybody has a great weekend watching the Chiefs in the Super Bowl for another year.